Hey everybody, it's Keith. Here we are back in my bed. I didn't know if we'd be here again, but I'm giving this another whirl, so welcome. Um, you know, the other day I was thinking about my heritage, and I was thinking about, growing up Italian and so on and so forth. And there's certain things that we think of, that make us realize that we've grown up in a certain, particular culture. And like growing up Italian, the fish on Christmas Eve was so important. Christmas Day was important, of course, and then Easter and all the Italian pies and the festivities that go with that. And there's always baptisms and your first Holy Communion and so on and so forth. And the list goes on and on. Sunday dinners and meatballs and spaghetti and lasagna. Although we never really had spaghetti because my father wasn't a fan of it. Whole other story. But I was thinking about funerals and wakes. And the reason I was thinking about funerals and wakes is because 2 weeks ago, two very dear friends of mine suffered losses. My best friend suffered the loss of her father-in-law, and a dear friend suffered the loss of her husband. So I started thinking about how when I was young, we were not allowed to go to the funeral or the wake of my grandparents. And in those days, wakes lasted 3 days. But I don't know, my parents, I guess, didn't want to expose Randy and I to like dead bodies. Although I have to tell you, at my grandmother's house once in the basement, I found pictures of my mother's brother who died as a young child in a box. And when I opened up the box, there he was in this little white coffin, and it freaked me out. And my mother was like, "Oh my God, why did you look at those?" And I was like, "Well, why wouldn't I look at them? They were pictures in a box." But anyway, some things you just cannot unsee. So my first my first wake was for my cousin Jim, who died much too young. He was in his early 30s. And I'm standing in front of the coffin with my mother, and we are looking at it. And it always cracks me up when people say that people in a coffin look good. I mean, how good can you possibly look? You are in a coffin and you're dead. But so be it. So we are standing there, and all of a sudden my mother turns to me and she is like, "His hair looks terrible, fix it." And I said, "No." And she was like, "Get in there and fix it." And I said, "I am not getting into a coffin and fixing someone's hair." I said, "First of all, I love him, but there is no way, woman, that is going to happen." And she's like, "I said, fix it." And I was like, "No." And so I like stepped on her foot really hard, and she's like, "Oh, you hurt me." And I was like, "I know." And in the meantime, the ladies behind us are like, "Who's the blonde lady and that guy? They're arguing in front of the casket." And I was like, "Oh, shut up." I was thinking to myself. But anyway, and I remembered that when my partner died, tragically, and much too young, we were at the wake. And of course, we were all standing in front of the coffin, and suddenly his mother just like starts going down, like she's passing out in front of the coffin, and we all like sort of like go to her, and we're holding her, and they bring smelling salts, and she's on the ground and they're trying to revive her. And I was just thinking, oh my God, this is all like part of the process. Like the drama comes along with it. And I'm not sure if anyone else does it. Well, I do know that other people do it, but the Italians really do it well. So anyway, I have to get to these two services. And I realized that they're both going to be on the same day. My friend's father-in-law, my friend's husband. What to do? Well, as it turns out, one of them has calling hours from 9 o'clock from 9 o'clock until 10:30, and the other one is just a funeral at 11. So I'm able, like the funeral gods lined it up for me, right? I'm totally fine, except the glitch is I have to get blood drawn for my annual physical. So I know that they always run on time. So I get to the office and I go in, and lo and behold, 10 minutes late. I couldn't believe it because I only had a half an hour to make it to the 10:30 ending of these calling hours. So now I get in, they draw my blood, and discover that there has been an error on my orders. So now they have to contact the doctor. My heart is pounding. I'm like, oh my God, I have to get to a funeral, people. Please hurry up. And so I finally get out at 10 o'clock. And now I realize I have a very limited time to get to the calling hours. So I jump in my car and I'm racing like a banshee, like a crazy man down the Boston Post Road, and I'm going weaving in and out of cars, and I'm going through stop signs and stop lights, and of course slowing down. I'm going through all this stuff. I'm going through neighborhoods that I never thought I would go through. Like even on a good day, I fear that I would, not be found the next day. But anyway, I make it. I make it with like 8 minutes to spare. And I go running in, and I have to collect myself because I don't want to go in there like, hi, and, be all dramatic. So I make it in very calmly, and I pay my condolences. My friend is super happy to see me. Now I go out because I know I have to go far away to get to the other funeral service. But in the meantime, I'm starving because the blood draw was fasting. So I realize that I am around the corner from Lucibello's Italian pastry shop. I'm going to stop on the way because what could be more fitting than Italian pastry? So I stop, I get 2 pastry. I get into the car, I tear open the box, and I like get into the chocolate pie, and poof, all of the white confectioner sugar goes falling onto my blue pants. Now I look like the cocaine addict who is tearing through New Haven just to get to a funeral. Like, cray cray. So anyway, I make it to the funeral, but I have to run downstairs. I have to wash my pants, hoping that they won't get too wet, because that could be a whole other situation itself. And I get into the pew, and all set. Funeral goes off, it's happening, very, very sad. But all of a sudden I start to cry. I start to cry because they start singing hymns about the Blessed Mother. And of course, my grandmother was all about the Blessed Mother. And I remember that, and I embraced the Blessed Mother. And as a matter of fact, when I was in Portugal, I actually think I met the Blessed Mother, and we had a conversation. I'm not even lying about this, but that's a whole other story. So, funeral's over, I get back in the car, and the week before I had made marinated eggplant, pickled eggplant. And I had 2 jars, or 3 jars actually, to send to California to my best friend Robert, who loves it. So I have to go to the post office with my pickled eggplant, and I have to ship it off to California. And after all this occurs, I realize toward the end of the day, I start laughing to myself because, quite frankly, could it be any more Italian? I'm not so sure. I think I had a very Italian Monday. And you know what? It was awesome.